This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, Wednesday, June 24th. We're going to go ahead and get our presentation started. I think we've got both of our presenters on, but we may be waiting for one, so we'll make it work. Today, we are very excited to talk again about more social networking that's happening for women veterans, really looking at remote social support as we try and connect women across the state, across the nation, and certainly during these unprecedented times of COVID-19 and our need to social distance and physical distance, and how that's kind of impacting women veterans and meeting their needs when it comes to maintaining social support networks, as well as making sure that they're able to still get all of the benefits and resources that they may usually get in person in some new way. So before we introduce our two speakers that I'm very excited to talk to today, I want to give you a few housekeeping items, just some gentle reminders. We do record this webinar, so please mute your phones so that everybody can be heard loud and clear. And then we also like to have these conversations very loud and clear when on the recording, so that anybody who missed today's conversation can always go back and view it later. And you can find our webinars that we do regularly on our website. That's www.calvet.ca.gov/womenvets. And if you go to our statewide webinars tab, you can find that information easily about any past recordings that we've done. And then you'll also see announcements for our next webinars. We do have another webinar coming up on July 15th, also a Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And in that webinar next month, we'll be talking to the Veterans Yoga Project and walking through a few great exercises on mindfulness, breathing, and yoga. So a couple other housekeeping items. If you're using our GoToMeeting software, you're welcome to ask a question in our chat window. And at the end of our presentation, we will get to questions with our presenters or with Calvet. But please hold your questions till the end, and be sure to use our chat window whenever you can to ask those questions. So our two presenters today are with the women's group, Woven. This is Women Veterans Network. It's a national network that focuses on remote support of women veterans in all manner of areas, and it's quite robust. We've known about Woven for a long time and talked to them a couple years ago, but it's been a while since we've had them back to have a discussion like this. We also have several women here in California that are members of Woven as well, so that's exciting. So our first presenter today is the director of Woven. This is Tara Golofsky. Tara is a PhD. Dr. Golofsky is the director of the Women's Health Sciences Division of the National Center for PTSD, and she's an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Boston University School of Medicine. Prior to accepting her current position with the VA, Dr. Golofsky was an associate professor in the Department of Psychological Services at the University of Missouri-St. Louis and co-director of the Center for Trauma Recovery. Over the last decade, Dr. Golofsky has been a national trainer of cognitive processing therapy and has trained upwards of 700 VA clinicians and approximately 200 clinicians in community mental health as well. Dr. Golofsky also developed the National Network of Peer-Led Support Groups for Women Veterans, Woven, and that bridge back to women service members transitioning from military service to civilian life. Dr. Golofsky, among other things, also continues to investigate the gender differences in PTSD clinical presentations and treatment outcomes. And so we're very excited to have her today with us. The second individual with Woven, I'm going to read her bio right now too. Our second presenter is Kat Corchado. Kat is a veteran of the United States Air Force. She served from 1980 to 2000. And within Woven, she is a peer leader trainer and a national consultant based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Kat is also the firstborn of three children, all into a military family. Her dad served in the U.S. Air Force, And when she went into the military, she was a single parent at the age of 22 and joined the Air Force. And Kat says that as women veterans, we need to be able to connect and reflect about our past, present, and future, and that her hope is to stay connected and deepen friendships with the Woven family and be open to new friendships with future Woven participants. So, Kat, I'm excited because I think you just found a bunch of friends on this phone call. So, welcome, Tara. Welcome, Kat. Let's go ahead and get started. Tara, were you able to join us?
As I am, I'm here. Thank you for your patience.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. Very happy to have you on the call. I'll go ahead and forward through our slides for you. Let me know if you're able to see everything, and then we can go ahead and get started, okay?
I can see everything, so I'll have control now.
Okay, take it away.
Okay, great. So, whoops. Okay. Great. So I'm trying to get it to fit my screen. I'm talking about here. Mine's a little bit large for my screen. Is everybody else's screen okay? Okay.
Looks good.
So, good. Okay. Thank you for having us. Kat and I have been working together on Woven now for, Kat, 3 years, I think. And we had the pleasure of meeting at the very beginning of Woven when we were just pulling this idea together. And I was doing a focus group with a number of women veterans in Charlotte. And got to meet Kat and a bunch of women, but Kat and another woman, Tina Bryce, actually stayed with us to this day. And so Kat has really been an integral part of this program since the very beginning. We go a long way back now, we can say, I think safely, Kat. So in terms of this presentation, we really want to leave lots of time for questions and really kind of give you, a good overview of the program and so forth. Oops. Sorry, I had a little bit of feedback there. So we really wanted to give you an overview of the program and go forward with it. And am I able to control forwarding the slides, or should I just let you know when to forward the slide?
I'll forward it for you.
Okay, great. So next slide would be great. Thanks. Okay, so here's our team. Amy Street and I are the directors, our associate director. We have lots of research staff. Kat is up in the top row there with Tracy Rosado, who's our other national consultant. My dog is making an appearance there, as you can see, but we have a great staff and very invested in the program. Next slide, please. So where did this idea kind of come from? Is an interesting story. I'm the director, as you heard, of the Women's Health Sciences Division of the National Center for PTSD in the VA, and also have a position as an associate professor at the Boston University School of Medicine. And we were approached by a number of different foundations at one point and said, what can we do to get more in the women veteran space? And so we said, well, there's lots and lots of things going on in the VA and in Cohen clinics and all over the country with respect to healthcare for women veterans. But support and connections is so incredibly important, and Kat put it really nicely in her bio. And women veterans are just smaller in number, as you all know. It's harder to find one another once you leave service, a growing number, but a smaller number. And so we said, what about if we built a network where women veterans can find one another, can kind of rediscover that unit cohesion and that camaraderie that existed during military service. And so we said, if we build this idea, essentially, will women veterans come and will they find support and connections and hopefully mitigate some of the negative effects of loneliness and isolation and those things that many of us experience. So next slide, please. So that essentially became our mission. We wanted to provide really a unique social support network of women veterans to do exactly what Kat said, to really foster connections and to build relationships and help our women find one another in local communities and indeed across the nation. Next slide, please. And so Woven has, where we landed with Woven is we have a kind of semi-structured protocol that we train women veterans to become peer leaders and go back to their home cities and lead these groups. And groups, Woven groups, consist of 8 different meetings, usually once a week, although in the pandemic, we've been actually having groups more frequently. Some of our groups now are 2 times a week or even 3 times a week, as people are really kind of suffering from this isolation and the burden of loneliness even more. We do have a manual that we developed. It's very dynamic and conversational, and each group centers around a theme. So I'm going to pass it over to Kat. And Kat, I don't know if maybe you want to talk about maybe what your favorite theme is and give people kind of a sense of what we do in at least an example of one group.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, everyone, for having me and for being here today. One of my favorite of the weeks is week 2, where we talk about transitions. For those of us that have been military or know of military, transitioning from the military to civilian life is incredibly difficult. And so transitions is important because it gives us a chance to look back at where we've been. As women, we are so focused on what's next, that we don't look back at the things that we've accomplished. There were times in the military when you were going through things and you didn't think you were going to make it, but you're here now and you look at that and you say, wow, I came through that and I'm even stronger now than I was before. So transitions is my favorite only because we look at all of those things that we've accomplished in service and out of service. And to get through transition is incredibly difficult, which is why Woven, I wish Woven had been there when I was getting out of the military, because this is exactly what I would have wanted.
Yeah, so
do you want me to talk about connections?
Yeah, well, yeah, connections is another great example. That's Tina's favorite, so
Okay.
she'll be upset if you don't talk about it.
Yes, it is. So connections, if you can look at the bottom view where it's got a table, and it's about your relationships. And if you see, it's got idol, mentor, future friend, and a challenging relationship. And it gives us a chance to think of those connections that we do have. So when women come out of the military, think about they become isolated. And so sometimes those connections that you do have with your family aren't so much now because you're so focused on what you're trying to get accomplished coming out of the military. So you talk about your idol, and that can be anyone. My idol was Michelle Obama. I don't know her, but she's someone that every time I see her, she just depicts that kind of person that I would like to be, as I say, when I grow up. The next one, I'm going to go to future friend. I'm going to skip over only because we go through this every time. And one of the other national consultants, Tracy Rosado, was a person I put as my future friend. And we have been friends ever since that time that I put her down as a future friend. A challenging relationship is someone that's, it could be a family or could be a friend, but it's recognizing that it's challenging and why is it challenging, and do you want to still continue with that relationship? And so it's asking you those questions so that you can kind of think about some of these things and realizing the connections that you do have and whether it's something that you really want to continue with. And of course, mentor. So a lot of times mentor, and I came back to this one last only because when I first did this, I didn't have a mentor. I was a single parent in the military and there was no one to mentor me. And so the first time I did this, I put myself down because there was no one else to mentor me but me. And so when other women hear that, it gives them permission to say, okay, yeah, that sounds like something that I would do because I don't have a mentor either. And that's okay. And that's what I love about Woven is that we meet you where you are. And through these groups, if you ever get a chance to see these groups just blossom, it's an amazing thing to watch. Thank you, Tara.
Yeah. No, so basically, all of these themes build on one another, just as Kat said, and we find points of commonality. It's a place that we really avoid telling other group members how to live their life, much more around let me talk about my experience and find ways that that we can kind of support one another through it. And great stories. Lots of laughs, lots of tears actually too sometimes. Okay, next slide, please. So basically, like I said, there's a whole curriculum that Woven follows, and we train our women veterans to go on and become peer leaders, and it gives all the background on Woven, lots of hints about being a good peer leader and what it takes to run a group. We do have information about crisis management, and we really bank our conversations on Socratic questions. So we're never saying you should do this or why didn't you do this? It's more what was it about that experience that, kind of caused you to act in that way, those types of things. Each meeting has an outline and there's instructions for all meeting activities. So there's kind of this like structure to get that conversation started to keep people on a theme, but really the conversation can go in any number of different directions. Next slide, please. Many of our peer leaders then went on to become trainers. And so one of the first things that Dr. Street and myself realized is that we cannot single-handedly train enough women veterans to meet the need. And so we had some of our early stellar peer leaders go on to become trainers. Kat was one of those folks, and now she's a national consultant. But here's a picture of us in D.C., at one of our trainings. And so now we have women veterans who go on to train other peer leaders so that our footprint can grow bigger and bigger. Next slide, please. Here's another picture of a recent training in Orlando, and the National Center for PTSD has really recognized this mission. This isn't actually a VA program. It's a program that we fund through Boston University. But the VA is very supportive of us and provided funding for us to hold 3 big national trainings, and we'll continue that next year. And so we flew a bunch of folks into Orlando and had this great training, then had another one in San Diego, and then unfortunately our training in Philadelphia got canceled in June due to COVID, but we have plans for more trainings going forward. Next slide, please. So we have grown. We have grown in leaps and bounds all the way from early August of 2017, where we had, Kat, I think it was 6 of us with 3 different groups in 3 different cities. And now we are actually well over 2,500 women. We had anticipated that we would be at about 300 to 400 women at this point, but we have just grown in leaps and bounds. We've just enjoyed a ton of success. We've had just this past weekend, Dr. Street, myself, Kat, and Tracy were interviewed by O Magazine. So we'll be featured in O Magazine in November, and we've done stories on NPR and on the New York Times and Rally Point and so forth. And so the word has kind of spread like rapid fire. Next slide, please. We are in cities all across the country, and actually this map is growing. But during the pandemic, we really pivoted very quickly to be able to do online groups. And so we actually have all of our groups right now on Zoom. And it's working out really, really well. We were glad that we had piloted that, and then the pandemic struck, and we were able to just kind of pivot really quickly. So even though this map represents where we have actual peer leaders and in-person groups, pandemic notwithstanding, we actually are able to access women all over the country now with our online resources. And I think we just started our 45th online group. So, considering that those really kind of started in February, that has really taken off across the country, which is great in this pandemic. Next slide, please. Here's a number of us on the Midway in San Diego in January. Those are the trainers there. We have a training day, a refresher before all of our peer leaders come in, and then we break out into smaller groups. But these are some of our demographics. We're actually a pretty diverse group. We represent numerous different races and ethnicities, women who work full-time, women who work part-time, homemaker students, and women with reported disabilities are certainly make up all of our woven demographics. Next slide, please. Those of our income levels, high school or education rather, and relationships. And oh my goodness, our percentages are not showing up for some reason on that. But basically, it's well spread across all of the different demographics. Sorry about that. We have women that represent each branch of service. The average time that our women were in service was about 11 years, but we have a full range, and we actually, I know, have a few women who joined us since we created these slides, and so we have people that have been in service even over 30 years at this point. As you can see, most of our women were active duty, and the primary military occupation was service support. Over half of our women deployed overseas and in different theaters, with the majority of them being post 9/11 wars. Next slide, please. We always are tracking how woven is doing from a research perspective, and this slide looks like it's a little bit wonky too. Sorry about that. But basically, we want to understand whether our members enjoy each meeting and whether that meeting added value to it. And you can see across the board with all of our meetings, transitions is the one that Kat described, but we have balance and stress relief. Connections is the dinner table one. Healthy living and esteem. We get high marks across the board for them. So women are getting both enjoyment and value out of these meetings overall. Next slide, please. We also, our goal was to increase social support, and by increasing support and connections, we hope to increase mental health and well-being. And we can see by this slide that we did achieve those goals. But we were also really delighted to see that almost half of our women reported improvements in physical health as well. And about a third reported improvements in family life, religious life, and then recreation and work. So it does appear that woven's having a nice impact across the board on important domains of function, which is really nice to see. Next slide, please. So our next step is something that we're really, really excited about. And this is actually an idea that started very early on in Woven. Several of our Woven members, our veterans, said exactly what Kat said earlier on the call. You know, if I had had Woven when I was transitioning out of service, my transition would have been much easier, essentially. And so we decided to, as Woven grew, and we have quite a big national platform now with several thousand women, we decided to bridge back to women who are in active duty. So women who are transitioning out of service in the next 6 months or so, we are going back and we're doing a weekend retreat for them. We're developing the curriculum right now. And then we're training some of our woven women to become mentors for these women who are transitioning out of service into civilian life and into kind of veteranhood. And so by building this community, we hope to have one-on-one relationships with women as they walk through this path of transition that many of you know can be tricky. It can be very challenging and tricky. And so to have the support of a woman who's walked that path before you is critical, frankly. And in addition to your one-on-one mentor, we certainly want to welcome women into the larger woven community. So we're really excited about our Bridges program. We're going to pilot the first weekend retreat with our service members probably in February of 2021. Next slide, please. Thank you. So these are just some of our national trainings. One thing that we are pivoting to, especially in this era of COVID, is we're moving from these big training models where we fly a lot of women into different locations, and we're moving into regional trainings that we're starting off doing online. So if anybody's interested in becoming a peer leader within Woven, you actually can do that now online with our trainers, where we're going to basically do it on a Zoom platform over the course of a day and a half, and we have many openings. We've just pivoted to that. So our first one's already filled up, our second one's filling up, but if anybody has any interest in that or knows someone who does, don't hesitate to go to our website and enroll, and we can, one of our woven women will interview you, and we can get you either enrolled in a group or as a peer leader. What we're planning on doing, and this is just hot off the presses, is instead of having national trainings, we're taking a portion of that funding, and we're going to start to have kind of an annual summit. And so as our peer leaders really grow in Woven and become these really strong members of our woven community that you see in front of you here, we're going to actually fly our women in and have a weekend summit of woven women, including our amazing trainers like Kat and all of the other trainers. We have 16 at this point, as well as our really esteemed peer leaders, and we'll bring in speakers and other organizations so we can kind of share resources and so forth. So we're really excited about that, and we're looking at doing that hopefully in June of 2021 if this, if we're able all to travel by then. And so those are kind of the up and coming things for Woven, and a little bit of a glimpse into who we are and where we've come from. And Kat, is there anything you want to add to what I talked about?
Now, the only thing I'd like to say is this has just been such a journey. When I first met Tara, and I had no idea what Woven was, but I took that step, and I'm so glad I did. And because I've met so many women, I've made so many friends, that Woven isn't just something I do now. Woven is more like a family. It's, I'm the only girl with, out of three. And so I have found my Woven sisters through this program. And it's just been very beneficial, even for someone who's been out as long as I have. And I just hit the 20-year mark of being out of the military in April.
So we are happy to take questions or comments about Woven, or I can describe any parts of it in more detail if that's helpful.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you, Kat. Really great information. I am excited to see that your network continues to grow and to see the various demographics you're tracking, to see such a large kind of representation of us as women veterans who've served, decades ago up until very recently in all of this. So I would like to open it up for questions from our participants right now, either via our chat window or by phone, and then we can continue our discussion. So does anyone have questions by phone? Okay, we have one question from our chat window. Is there an enrollment process? Can you describe how someone goes about registering for the network, and then perhaps how they go about becoming a peer leader?
Sure. Do you want to take this one, Kat, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can take it. So the first thing you would do is go to wovenwomenvets.org. You would fill out a peer leader request or just a request to join a group. And then our wonders that be in Boston will get back to you and let you know. Right now, we're only doing online. And so if you want to do an online group, we can get you into a group. If you would like to be a peer leader, you will fill out the peer leader form. Either myself or Tracy will call you. We'll do a Zoom interview, and then we'll recommend, see if you're a good fit for Woven, and then let you know when our next training is and if you're available to do that.
Okay, thank you. So to join, it really comes down to requesting to join a group online. In doing that, what are the normal sizes of the average sizes of the groups right now? Because I think you mentioned you all have about 45 groups growing, online groups right now.
Yeah, about 45. Some, depending on when some start, some end. So in that ballpark. So the groups online, we try to keep to about 6 to 8 women plus the 2 peer leaders. So then you have about 8 to 10 women altogether. The need has been really substantial, so our peer leaders have been really gracious in bumping that up. So some groups are a little bit larger than that. Some groups are a little bit smaller. So the way it works is that you would enroll and say you're interested in an online group, which like Kat said is what we have available now, or you want to get on our list for in-person groups when we're able to open those back up. And then as soon as a new online group opens, we basically send out an email to everybody online. And if that time meets your schedule, then it's kind of first come, first serve, and people hop on the groups, and then we have a little bit of a wait list in case somebody has to back out at the last minute and so forth for each group, and then we get them rolling as soon as we can.
So it looks like peer leaders are required to run the group, but typical group size is 8 to 10 people, maybe larger because of demand. And you said those groups are usually meeting twice a week? Is that correct?
But recently we've had a few peer leaders say, our women are wanting to see each other more. And so is it okay if we move to 2 times a week? And Kat and I and the Woven team are saying absolutely. So yeah, usually once a week, but there definitely are some groups that are doing it more often.
Okay. Great. And so we have a couple other questions in our chat window. Do you have flyers? Is there anything that, in terms of some of the in-person or mailing outreach that we do here in California, are there ways to get brochures or flyers out to people?
Yep, we sure can. If you go to our website, there's an email address, contactwomenvets.org or something. Kat would know what it is better than I. But basically, yeah, just email us and we can send you flyers, we can send you business cards, we can send recruitment materials, whatever you need. And then if you were to become a peer leader, we also continue to support you in those ways. So, we even have tablecloths that we can send out if somebody, wanted to do a talk at a conference or something like that. So we can support veterans in all of those ways. And the other thing that is I think might be kind of interesting for folks to watch, we have a couple of promotional videos that we have just put onto our website. And essentially it's, we basically had a videographer come to our national trainings and try to kind of capture the spirit of Woven that's just really difficult to describe in situations like this. So it's worth clicking on it and watching it. We really like it, and I think you might get a sense of all of the energy in the room and the different women who have participated in the organization.
Okay. So also another question we got was, what happens after you become a trainer? What does life look like after you complete a curriculum? It sounds like as a peer leader, you can run these groups, but just knowing some women who have completed the training, it also seems like it's an opportunity to go on and learn more and teach more about just running groups for women veterans? What are some of the other things that some of your women in this network do with the training that they've been given through Woven?
Want to give some examples?
Sure, I can tell. So, a lot of times the women, that are in the group will say, well, what's next? And sometimes they stay in contact through different ways. We are currently coming up with our alumni group. So those people that have gone through a group can get into an alumni group, and so that they can stay connected. When I've run groups, I always have everyone's email, and I always contact them. Hey, let's get on a Zoom call and let's see how everybody's going. So we always want to stay in contact with each other, because the connection is so strong through the 8 weeks that you just want it to keep going. So those are a couple ways that you can stay in contact. Or if you're part of the group, you can also say, you know what, I want to be a peer leader, and you can go through it that way also.
The other places you can go is, so you can go from group member to peer leader. You can start at peer leader. Our really exemplary peer leaders may go on to become trainers, and then they travel with us essentially and do the trainings, which is great. We're a really close group. And then now we have this new option of becoming a guide for bridges for our women in transition from service to veteran, and also a mentor. You can be a mentor for other women veterans. We're also expanding our website with some new funding from the Bob Woodruff Foundation, and we're really highlighting women veterans with their veteran-owned businesses and all kinds of things. Like we have several authors, for example, and we have all just artists and poets, and so we're really highlighting women veterans and all of their skills and accomplishments too.
And so, is there opportunities to partner with other organizations as well? And do you typically do that?
It's a big part of our mission. We always say we are not in competition with anybody. We really embrace partnerships with other organizations, and so we have, for example, a newsletter that goes out every week, and we will interview people from different organizations and really feature all of the resources that they have to offer for women veterans, because our goal is to get well-vetted resources into our women veterans' hands. So what we find out is that just not everybody knows about the wealth of resources that are out there. And so we really try to kind of pass the word along as much as possible. And we've had some great partnerships develop that way, from anywhere from like employment opportunities to healthcare benefits to enrollment or in other organizations, whether that's like a retreat or just all different kinds of things. So we are delighted to partner with other organizations, and as long as they're valid and reliable, we will spread the word.
Okay, wonderful. Great to hear. Okay, do we have any additional questions from our phone participants or additional questions in our chat window? So I guess I'll start wrapping up our call, but really I want to know what you see as the next 10 years for Woven. What do you hope for as your vision for this organization as it continues?
Kat, you want to take that one?
Sure. My hope is that Woven has a footprint in every state and almost every city throughout the United States. I'm hoping that Woven is actually a part of, or can be a part of, the transition assistance program, where we're there giving information to these women and letting them know we're there. And in case they start falling through that dark hole during transition. So I'm hoping that when anyone says Woven, everyone like, oh yeah, I've heard of Woven, I know what that's about. So I'm hoping it's just like one of those, what do you call, household words that people just know automatically and know what it's about, and they're able to tell other people about it.
Oh, that's great, Kat. That's
Yeah. I would just add that it has been a remarkable and humbling experience to be on this journey. You know, we started in August of 2017. We had the 6 women join us in St. Louis. Kat was one of them. And we said, okay, let's try to build this. And, you know, will they come? And I remember at that table, our women, it probably was Kat, saying, I want woven to be a household word at some point. And, you know, we had the pleasure of listening to a panel discussion on the Hill with the House Veterans Affairs Committee, and it was led by Congresswoman Brownlee, and she said, you know, over and over again, the members of the HVAC said we need more social support for veterans, more peer support. You know, veterans know what veterans have gone through. Veterans have walked this path before. And at the close of this panel discussion, it would have been actually on the floor in the Hill had there not been COVID. Congresswoman Brownlee, who came out and visited us in San Diego and spent part of our workshop with us, really said it so well. She said, you know, this isn't rocket science. This isn't costly. This isn't expensive. She's like, but it's so important. And this kind of social support. And she named Woven as kind of the epitome of that because of what she'd heard from veterans all over the country who have participated in this program and just genuinely benefited from it. And it's not rocket science. It's just about finding other women who have walked that path. And so it's, you know, 10 years down the road, I hope that that we are kind of coming full circle. We're helping younger and emerging veterans through their path. We're listening to the wisdom of our older women veterans, and we continue to be a voice for all women veterans, you know, even kind of having the ear of Congress at times, which is pretty cool.
For that, that's good to hear that the focus continues to be on peer networks and social networks for women veterans and for veterans overall. I think it's an absolutely necessary groups that we have to form, and something that is worthwhile to pursue as we tend to transition into civilian life and lose some of those great relationships that we had within the military, as well as some of that support. So we do actually have a couple more questions that came in. We've got a little bit more time. So so Jacqueline's asking if there are flyers that we can share with women veterans. Absolutely. So those, again, are located on Woven's website. You can email the organization and get more information about resources, business cards, and things like that to share. So that email is contact@wovenwomenvets.org. Additionally, people are asking when the training sessions take place. Are they typically during the weekday or during the weekend, since we're all such busy people?
Yeah, that's a great question. The next 4 trainings are going to be all day Friday and half day Saturday, and those are online trainings. And we have one scheduled in July, August, September, and October. And then we're thinking about, you know, how those are going to work. When we're flying people to the trainings, that's been the schedule. We basically fly people in on Friday and we fly them back home on Sunday. We do have more flexibility with online trainings, so we are playing with kind of breaking it up a little bit and maybe doing some evening trainings or over the course of the full weekend and so forth. So we're playing with different times to really make this work for as many women as possible, because we agree it gets really tricky to give up that time.
Okay, thank you. And then someone else is asking, does Woven take part in any events or activities? So again, I think talking more about the partnerships with other organizations, but are Are you guys able, I mean, pre-COVID, were you able to get out and do outreach activities or be present at other groups or conferences perhaps?
We do. We often speak at professional conferences. We have a research component, and so I didn't present that data, but we, we're always looking to see whether or not we're hitting the nail on the head in terms of really improving well-being, improving good health, those types of things. So we do have a presence at professional conferences, but our women, we've said, well, we're going to set the table, we're going to help people make connections, and then the last meeting actually is around the topic of what are we going to do from here? What are we going to go? So we have women who have gotten together and paid it forward by sending care packages to elderly veterans during COVID, for example. We've had women go and decorate a disabled veteran's Christmas tree for the first time as a group. Help build a house, do other kinds of community service for sure. We had a big presence at Texas' recent Women Veterans Day, for example, both online and then the year before when it was in person. So definitely Woven Women get out there and they do any number of activities. We are excited about having a national summit and a national conference so we can kind of have a place where we can all come together and really have more of a kind of a national community, even beyond our local in-person group communities.
Okay, great. So it sounds like a lot of the members actually get the chance to decide what it is that they would like to do among themselves. So for anyone who's looking to give back or to volunteer, Woven is yet another organization. We heard from two last week, actually, or the week before last. We talked to the Mission Continues and Team Rubicon, but you guys are also engaged in that space of volunteering and giving your time and of yourselves to help others. So that's excellent. Okay. And I think people are wondering if Woven's ever available to participate in health fairs or to attend events like that. But you know, with COVID, that changes the game a little bit in terms of any outreach that's taken place, I'm sure.
And we plan to as soon as the world opens back up a little bit.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, any questions at this point? We've got about 6 minutes left on our call, and I'd like to be respectful of everyone's time. Anything else that people want to ask about Woven? Definitely check it out. Go to wovenwomenvets.org. Check out the website. Definitely get the chance to join. There's also a Facebook group that you can look at as well, so that you can be part of the conversation on Facebook, or you can look at becoming a member. So, okay. So if we don't have any additional questions, you're always welcome to contact us as well here at Calvet, and we can connect you with any of our presenters that we've talked to in the past, or provide any additional information if you're interested. So our contact information, again, is womenveterans@calvet.ca.gov. You're also welcome to call us, 916-653-1402, and we're happy to talk to you. I want to say thanks to everybody for joining. Thank you very much to Tara and to Kat. I am really looking forward to see what Woven continues to do in the future and getting more women veterans here in California engaged with your organization and in this general space. This is wonderful. And so folks, join us again July 15th at 1 o'clock on Wednesday to talk to the Veterans Yoga Project, and we'll continue to give you more information about other upcoming webinars and programs here at Calvet and in the California Women Veterans area. So Tara and Kat, thank you so much for joining us again. We really appreciate having you, and I hope we can keep in touch and you can see more, California women veterans joining Woven.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate your time. Thanks for participating as well and asking great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.